Hey guys, this is Turok, and in this video I'm going to be doing a kind of overview of season 2, part 1 of Wednesday. I'm sorry if this is going to be a little still. I tried to figure a way. I'm still not sure if I should go over the plot overall. I want to go over more the main interactions here that are creating the different dramas the different plot lines going on. Anyways, so bear that in mind if you're watching this. I have watched part 2. This is going to be a spoiler trailer overall, a spoiler review anyways of part 1. So if you're looking into this to decide to watch it, I'm going to just tell you right now that you should watch it, and I think it's great, and it really builds up perfectly upon the first season. So go ahead and watch it now. Turn off this video in about 30 seconds or so. I'm going to get into spoilers. You've been warned. So no, I'm going to do it right now. So please leave now. Go and watch it right away. Get out there. Wednesday is awesome. I can see why they put it out now too, because I brought this up the other day when I was talking about One Piece, the live action that's coming out. They just keep putting 2026. So obviously with that, sorry, my arm's sore. One Piece and this, they're trying to keep these two apart because these are become their two probably like tent pole shows that are like Stranger Things. I think it's almost over. I still never really watched that. As far as shows go, this one went really well. Then One Piece came out the year later, and I think that did even better. Of course, One Piece has international appeal. Anyways, I can see why they got the two of them spaced apart. I keep forgetting that. But let's get into this. So this show, part 1 of season 2, starts out shortly thereafter. And actually, I'll do this as part of one of the things I didn't care so much for this is it has a couple areas of the show that are kind of like filler, and right off the bat, the first 10 minutes of that is where Wednesday pursues this serial killer played by Haley Joel Osment is in the first 10 minutes. He's a serial killer that she pursues, and she goes after him to try to catch him in the act and see. I don't know, I guess she wants to, you know what it is too, there's something with this part where I'm wondering if Wednesday wants a challenge to have someone who will be able to capture her and subdue her. I feel like that's going to be something they could do down the line, where she meets someone she's falls in love with, and she would fall in love with them more if they're both mentally and physically capable of taking her on. When she fell in love with Xavier and Tyler in the first season, she's kind of only just in, I don't know, they're just kind of attracted to them, I guess, but there was nothing else there. But so when she captures this serial killer and then sends him, she turns him into the authorities too. I'm kind of surprised she didn't kill him, because she doesn't seem like the type. This is one of the other contrasts I have too. She keeps having to work with the authorities, law enforcement, etc. But it doesn't seem like that's one part I'm thinking that really wouldn't feels like it would fit in with her and her family. They would just she would just kill him and bury him so no one ever finds this guy afterward. But no, she turns him in. Anyways, and then later on there's a bit of back to the filler. There's a section there later where they are at this campsite area that's far off on the school grounds, and they have to they compete. The Nevermore students compete with these Boy Scout type group to see who, because it's somehow the campsite is actually been double booked. So the Nevermore students get there already, but then the other guy's saying, well, we were booked by the new owner of the campsite, so we should get it. And then there's whole competition. It's kind of cool, but it just felt like a bit of filler. I only bring that up because it feels like there's some other scenes in here that could have been fleshed out better. But those are the biggest things there, and that really bothered me. It was just the kind of filler stuff that I kind of skipped over some of it. I went back and rewatched it just trying to see, but there's the biggest thing that was interesting with the serial killer played by Osment is that she was talking about her psychic abilities, and how that we saw that in the first season, how she mastered them. But that becomes part of the conflict of this, and in that she's trying to harness in a way, wrest control, where Morticia, her mother's telling Wednesday, you can't be doing it, that it doesn't work that way. you have to kind of let it do its own thing, and that kind of makes sense to me when it comes to like what it is here, because her power is this psychic ability. She means it's just divination. It's not anything else. She is trying to like use that in a way. Actually, I look at one other thing. One second. Actually, that was cool. Though, one thing is that they have Anthony Michael Hall play that Boy Scout leader, and he did a whole television show, which also there was a movie and it's Stephen King's book that is about him having abilities to see the future, and it's the one-to-one what Wednesday's doing in its application. So I thought that was cool that they had Anthony Michael Hall in there playing, having a part of the show because of his former. Actually, I'm sad. Didn't that show never like quite finish? I watched bits of it with my dad years ago, and I only rewatched one recently because there was that actress in there who was in Assassin's Creed 2 that I really liked. She passed away not long after, well, not in the Dead Zone, but after being in Assassin's Creed 2, and I wish she could have been continued to be see if she would have where her career could have taken her, because she was formerly a singer. So the only reason I was remembering that show right away was partially because of that. But so back to the story. So Wednesday now goes back to the school. She's trying to just go through the motions of being in school, but now there's other characters coming in. So we start with we first of all have her and so Bianca's back, and now the two of them are loosely speaking become friends. They ended it off where like they were going to have her and Wednesday were going to have a sparring match with they do fencing, but that never really produces here because Bianca has her own sub-story plot there. But it's nice to see that they kind of ended there. I didn't really want to have them have a rivalry anymore. I watched too many like anime and read mangas where the authors of those like to keep kind of like having them have friction together, and I appreciated them kind of pushing that aside because I didn't feel like that would go nowhere and just make being antagonistic to each other would just be counterproductive to the story. So Bianca's back. We have Enid. Sorry, I keep forgetting some of their names. There's so many characters going on in here. It's hard. I should have made a list of the characters. So Enid's back too. The only thing, let's get this out of the way too. Xavier is not in here. The actor had some allegations against him, so he's not returning. It probably never will. They did include his character like off screen. He had that like ability he had some kind of premonition stuff too, but he would like paint stuff, and that shows up briefly to be kind of a ominous stuff. But I want to get so he's not back. But Enid, Bianca, and is that the main ones? Yeah, they're the main two that are back. And so now to Enid, this is one other little critique I had is Enid and Wednesday still kind of don't really bounce off to each other, but I think, which is fine, but I think some of the scenes early in the first two episodes or so, I think Wednesday is still a little like pushing her away in a way that was kind of like, okay, I know you're not used to being around her, but you should try a little harder, and I'm hoping they'll improve that later on with that part. Oh yeah, and then Eugene is back as well. That's the one I forgot. Eugene is back, and this one, Pugsley now is in there, as we saw in the trailer, and Eugene and Pugsley have their own subplot that goes on in a moment. I'll get to that momentarily. So those are the main characters I can think of off the top of my head. Yeah. So now, for next we go to this series focuses a lot on, first of all, Wednesday. Let's do the plot. Wednesday has a premonition that Enid's going to die, and she starts looking into this as far as trying to so she's trying to figure out what's going to happen to Enid. But at that point there, her psychic ability starts failing her, and this becomes a thing where, because Gomez and Morticia are more in this story now than they were in the first season, and there becomes a lot of friction here between Morticia and Wednesday, as Morticia reveals that her sister Ophelia had this same ability that now Wednesday has inherited. it basically drove her mad. And Morticia is worried that Wednesday is gonna become the same way if she tries too hard to pursue control of this ability. And this becomes a big point where Morticia takes away Goody's book for the first one, and because Wednesday's convinced that she can find the answers in there, and Morticia's convinced if Wednesday cries too hard, she'll become crazy and disappear or die even, or something like or disappear like Ophelia did. And this becomes a big point too, because we already saw the friction between Wednesday and Morticia. And this is one of the best parts of the story, seeing how this is working along, because how different yet at the same time we can see Morticia and Wednesday are. Morticia, though, goes along and seems this very prim and proper woman, and I think Wednesday just doesn't realize how similar they are, and she's convinced wants to be more of a tomboy and pursue a more antisocial type of lifestyle and not be anything like her mother. And hopefully they'll come to some kind of reconciliation by the end. Meanwhile, Gomez is in here more as like mostly as a kind of comedic relief. We get to see a bit of him and Morticia together, and what's his name that plays Gomez in here? He does a really good job, but I still prefer Raul Julia's how do you say, from the Addams Family movies personified portrayal of Gomez. But I understand this is supposed to be more accurate to the comics from the decades ago. So back to the plot there, as Wednesday starts trying to pursue this stuff, she interacts with that sheriff again, and then he starts being the part that reveals the overall plot of this, where him and this private investigator, who used to be his buddy, used to be also law enforcement, I think. They're trying to track down something to do with missing outcasts that disappeared, and so we get this plot line where Wednesday's realizing this could be adjacent to what happened, because both the sheriff from Gaplin, and his buddy Bradbury are killed by these mysterious crows. And so she's thinking there's something there where and she seems to be being pulled into this as if being watched over. So she starts trying to pursue what the two of those two had discovered before their deaths to these missing outcasts that show up late, that they discover stuff about, and they start realizing some other stuff with the that someone else there might have been like having malicious intent with the effect with the outcast in the school. As she discovers there was a professor that was once there that was actually a normie, which is their term for someone who's not the outcast. So it's kind of like the Muggle versus wizard dynamic that Harry Potter has. And I don't want to go too much into that, but I do find out that there's some like experimentation going on there that's very interesting. Maybe I should. That was going on at the Willow Hill, this asylum of sorts that's there in the same town there. Actually, that brings up something too interesting there, is that they have this I assumed from the first one, and I think I did say this in my review of season 1, that I assumed that only the community of normies that is nearby Nevermore knew about outcasts, and no one else did. That they didn't want to say anything because they're kind of like, they didn't want like other people thinking how weird they are for living near the Nevermore school. But this season hints at other people knowing in general that there are outcasts out there. So the Gorgons, the werewolves, vampires, because there's this psychiatrist or psychologist, whatever, who's working at Willow Hill, and she has a book. I thought that was very interesting, that the book about the outcast mind that is mentioned there. So that was very interesting to bring up, that there's like this community of like in the scientific world, they know about the existence of these supernatural races. So back to another relationship stuff going on. There's an interesting point here now too, where we're gonna see friction between Morticia and her mother. What's her name? I gotta look that up actually. Okay, they just call her Hester. Okay, her name is Hester. So in this thing, find this another interesting dynamic where we see that there's a lot of friction between Morticia and her mother, whose name is Hester, and the Wednesday though refuses to. At this point, she's not. She's more aligned with working with Hester, her grandmother, and because she still believes her mother. She believes her mother is being very controlling of her, and in some ways Morticia is, but I think Morticia just has a hard way, not doing a very good job of like communicating well with Wednesday in here. This will be the next dynamic. I want to see that. I already said that part, but I want to see here too. What's interesting here is I think Wednesday is not seeing how controlling Hester is. I instantly felt for Morticia once I met the way they're portraying Hester. Hester just sounds very. She seems like the more controlling type. I can just feel that vibe off of her. And at some point, it'll be interesting if Wednesday realizes this. Like I understand that Hester wants to be caring too, but she just throws off these bad vibes to me. There hasn't been much to produce for me to produce as evidence of this, other than the word of Morticia, and especially this was just brought up in there as like Morticia was worried about Ophelia, and her mother Hester apparently did not try to like not bury physically, and literally, figuratively shove away their Ophelia from the limelight in order to avoid some kind of shame to their end of the family, which is not the Adams. The Adams' name, remember, is Gomez. What's her name? Frump. So she seems very like that kind of. Hester seems to have a lot of like concern of the public image of sorts. Well, maybe not even public, but there is something there because I think she owns cemeteries among other things. She's a very wealthy woman, of course. Their family seems to be very wealthy too, like the Adams. But there's something there with her having a concern over the image of their family there. So it's possible that Morticia's exaggerating to some extent to plead her own case to Wednesday about what happened with Ophelia, among her, Ophelia, and their mother, Hester. But I still get the vibe here that Hester is the one still more in the wrong, according to closer to what Morticia is telling us. And it'll be interesting to see if part 2 will elaborate on this one way or the other, so we can get a intricacy of what happened to Ophelia. And we should talk a bit more about Ophelia. I have a feeling Ophelia is going to be some major focal of or a villain of sorts in there. There's some that I'll go back to the other main story. What we do know is we find out that this guy named Augustus Stonehurst and his daughter Judy were experimenting on other outcasts at Willow Hill, which led me to think that Ophelia might have been there. They kind of hint at this with Fester. He said that he he did a favor to Morticia to go to I don't think they specified it was Willow Hill, to go to a asylum and check on Ophelia. But this was after some point where Ophelia had a breakdown after trying to abuse her powers the way that Morticia's worried about Wednesday. And there's something there where like Ophelia disappeared, and for a while there, it almost felt like was gonna be the main part, the reveal at the end of this part. But we find out that the Augustus Stonehurst, who's the aforementioned professor I mentioned, he was also at Willow Hill, and he seemed to be. He must have like. This is where there's something I didn't really elaborate when I brought up Sheriff Gaplin. I brought up Sheriff Gaplin and his buddy Bradbury, and they mentioned something about normies and disappearing outcasts. It appears that Stonehurst was kidnapping some of these people, faking their death, and then they were that part. What we do know is they were definitely held against their will at Willow Hill in some capacity. capacity being meaning just that we don't know how if they had admitted themselves or were kidnapped, like I've just said. And the Augustus Stonehurst, the father, and then Jody, they're experimenting on these outcasts in order to actually what happened here is they're trying to learn how to give powers that they have to normal people who aren't born with them. So in a way, this could be like when I think of that, I immediately think of the contrast like between someone like Peter Parker's Spider-Man versus like Jean Grey from the X-Men, and how Peter was bitten by a radioactive spider, and now he has those powers where the mutants, Jean Grey and Wolverine and Logan, they are born with some of these powers. Logan is being his healing thing. Obviously, the claws are something else. Jean Grey is born with telekinetic powers. But back to her, use her. Her and versus this felt like something like the given powers through an experimental thing that it wasn't Peter's choice, obviously, but Jean Grey is born with powers. So the outcasts have different abilities. Some of them are completely different races in a way. You got the Gorgons, or we don't know how that would, and the vampires. But then we just also that's where another question is how Wednesday and her family, the Adams and the her mother's side of the family, what were they, Frumps, are how they seem supernatural as well to some degree, but they aren't. She's got the psychic abilities, but they aren't. They're still technically human comparatively to like the Gorgons and the werewolves and stuff. So there's stuff there that's interesting. But anyways, I want to bring this back. I'm still wondering if there's going to be something with the Stonehurst family, because the big reveal in this part is that the Stonehurst the daughter is the one continuing these experiments. Her father attempted to become a Da Vinci, which are these people who can do telekinesis in this universe, and it failed, but she was successful in gaining these. There's a new one, a new outcast introduced called the Avian, which means she can just control birds. And we find out she's the one who killed Gaplin and Bradbury earlier on when they were getting too close to learning about her experiment on the outcasts. And the question is, what is she? Is there any connections with her and Aunt Ophelia, Wednesday's Aunt Ophelia, that has been mentioned here? So one of my big predictions is Ophelia is. I'm wondering if Ophelia is watching in any way, or if she knows something with about what's going on about this outcast stuff. Because it kind of hints at that Augustus Stonehurst having been doing this a very long time. Because we see he's quite elderly, and his daughter Jody looks like she's in her 40s or so. So he could have been doing this even before she was born. And so Ophelia could have been there. I'm trying to remember if they specified that. So what happens with Ophelia there, and that was going to be in the next thing, the curious thing with the ending of this story, of this season. Back to Stonehurst then, actually, one last thing here to bring up there is the existence, there's an interesting thing going on here with this zombie that becomes the subplot with Pugsley. Ajax, who's kind of overseeing one of these, who's Enid's ex, he's a Gorgon. He tells this story, and I love this one scene where they use some of that stop motion type stuff that Tim Burton's done in some previous films. I'm thinking of that Corpse Bride. No, and there was Frankenwilly. What was that one called? About 10 years ago came out. It's using some aspects of that stop motion stuff. He tells this story about this guy who was a genius student who made an artificial heart, but then he was making these other things, and he was a genius outcast, and then he was killed. And when he killed by his own experiment, he was buried beneath a creepy tree outside the grounds of the Nevermore. Pugsley goes and finds that this guy really exists, and that this zombie becomes a focal side point there. Initially, it just starts murdering different people. It kills the Anthony Michael Hall's character, the Scoutmaster kills this driver education teacher that was there earlier in the story. Anyways, he at the end there they hint at him having some knowing Augustus Stonehurst, and so I'm wondering what the finishing parts of that is going to intertwine with, perhaps with him and maybe they're going to intertwine that story with Jody Stonehurst, who's still alive, and him who knew her father. So there's an interesting subplot there going on as well. And so, what's next? So the next part to get into, I guess, then there is Tyler. So at the end of this part, Tyler escapes, and that I just watched in the part 2 teaser. He seems to be there plotting his revenge against the Wednesday and Enid. He actually threatens to kill Enid to Wednesday. Wednesday visits him in this part when she's curious about what might have happened, if he had any information about what happened to Tyler's father after he's found murdered. And so I'm wondering how much of the plot that'll take up and versus the other stuff we just stacked along with Aunt Ophelia and the Stonehurst and the zombie. There's going to be a lot going on here with that angle. So it's going to be interesting to see if Tyler has any other aspect that will contribute to the story. Because the part with Thornhill seemed to be over. It looks for almost confirmed 100% that we see him and Thornhill reunite here, as she's been transferred from another facility after her crimes in the last one, and he appears to murder her. He definitely gouged her through her chest with his claws when he transformed. And I don't think Thornhill's going to be contribute anymore to this story. That I think they're just trying to tie off that part. But now it'll be interesting to see if Tyler has anything else to contribute with the other characters that Ephra mentioned here. And then there's Eugene here. I haven't brought Eugene much right now. Eugene he helped out. He became a close friend to Wednesday in the last season. He even helped Wednesday take down Thornhill. I'm not sure to think about what's going to happen with that. So there's not much else there. Oh, I got to go over 2 other things then here. So there's a main other storyline that's going on here. The last big one I think I had forgot to cover. Yeah, is the Bianca and the new. So now that Weems passed away, there is this new guy named Dort, who's the new principal. He's played by Steve Buscemi, and we see he's an outcast who has pyro fire powers. There's a subplot going on here where he's working for somebody to try to get. He manipulates Bianca. He threatens her. What do you say? Like he scared her. Something about maybe he's gonna kick her out or something. He wants Principal Dort wants Bianca to manipulate Morticia's mother. What's her name again? Hester. He wants to have Hester provide a large donation to the school, and I forget how he said it. I don't know why the school is hurting for money, but he manipulates Bianca into first trying to smooge up to Morticia, and ask Hester to have Morticia ask her mother to get money, donate money to the school, and then eventually when that doesn't work, he forces Bianca to say well, use your powers. That's why I asked you in the first place, and he does do that. So that was something interesting here too. There's 2 things there. Well, one is Dort. He has some kind of object that makes him immune to being manipulated by a siren. And so he definitely has thought a lot about this. And, 2, Bianca does successfully talk to Morticia about it and use her powers. So I'm thinking, did she even call her? Because when Hester comes into the story, she does it because Wednesday asks her for help in the investigation. That's how she finds out about Stonehurst. Who was kidnapping these students. But anyways, there's back to Dort now. There's something going on here where later on we overhear him on a conversation with somebody. So there's a question there of what's going on with that subplot of why who's he working for? Maybe there's some kind of malicious intent there towards Morticia and her mother Hester, and that's why he's the tool to this mysterious person that where he pushed along this plot to get Bianca to manipulate Morticia, and he may even try to tell her to go do that directly to Hester and have Bianca use her siren voice there. So there's still a lot of stuff there that's very unanswered too, and it's just really cool to see how this is if this is all going to tie together again with the other stuff we learned in this thing. And that's about it. There was just so much to talk about. The last thing of interest too, though, is that and there's some additional characters entered here. One is named. There's this girl who can turn invisible. I think her name is Agnes, and she's there like a stalker to Wednesday. She's dressing up with copying her hairstyle and stuff. And I bring her up too because I have a feeling her character could die, because they typically love to do that in some of these shows where the invisible character who's always sneaking about is often isn't good at sneaking. Actually, they had this as a plot. So Fester's in here as well. Last thing, I'll bring him up and her. She's Agnes is following Wednesday around, and Wednesday just is oblivious to it. It happens a few times, but when Wednesday goes to Fester to help do some of this investigation, Wednesday wants Fester to go undercover. He sees that he can sense or hear Agnes, and he uses his ability and zaps her. So I'm just concerned that she could be a character that dies, because they've had all the characters here. So far, they haven't had many important characters die. The most important one that did was Augusta Stonehurst, and I don't think I mentioned her before, but they had another therapist named Fairborn in here, who was that made her very scary. But then she got killed by the zombie, the mechanical heart zombie at the end of that episode 4. So, what was I saying? Oh, I'm just concerned about Agnes. She's a very creepy character. The actress does great, but I'm just wondering what's going to happen there. Oh, one more character that's of a mysterious what's going on here is there's a music teacher named by Billie Piper, and I think I mentioned her earlier. She's been in here just like trying to, she wants to have Wednesday help in some kind of orchestra thing or some kind of performance they're going to do, because she's a new music teacher, and she's been acting a little mysterious early on, and so we have no idea what's going on with that. There was just so many of the other thread lines that I discussed that didn't kind of got her pushed aside, that I hope we're going to figure out what that is. And I'm not sure where to place that. Could she be Ophelia? Oh God, what if they make her be Ophelia? Because I don't know if she ever interacted with Morticia. That was something else. When you have a mysterious character like that, sometimes, like Ophelia, sometimes they have a character, mysterious character has been there the whole time. Now I'm just thinking that, what's her name? Billie Piper's her character, actress, but what's her name? Capri, something like that. She seems like they could have her as the actress. Cause her age, I don't think she's as old as Catherine Zeta-Jones, who's playing Morticia, but they could still work together. I think was Ophelia older or younger? Shit, now I forgot. I'm thinking that she's Ophelia, and the fact that her and Morticia didn't meet each other just makes me slightly more suspicious, because she would recognize her. Morticia would recognize her. Yeah, Capri. So, yeah, that's all I got. This was just a really great storyline. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen with the Ophelia storyline, and if it's going to link to the Stonehurst one, the Stonehurst in this part that's coming up, and along with everything else. So, part 2 comes out in 3 weeks. I'm certainly going to binge the hell out of it and make my own a gush over again like I did with this one. So that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching.